So I'm going to talk today about the build I played this in Season 3, this Last Epoch patch. Started as usual with the Smite Paladin, and eventually swapped to Reflect to do Breath. So I'm going to go over how the build works and how to get it going. So the main reason this works is this chest here that gives us the ability to deal our reflected damage to enemies that basically look at us every 0.5 seconds. And the thing about reflected damage is it's not scalable in any way. You cannot get more damage, you cannot get your damage mitigated in any way. So if you do the math of how much reflected damage you have and you multiply it by the various multipliers that we have to increase its damage, like in this case we have 400% more damage reflected to bosses and rare enemies, and the other source is here from that shield. We get more increased flat damage per attunement, and these are the only two things that are gonna increase our reflected damage. Well, that number will be the damage you deal no matter what. If you're fighting level 100 monsters or if you're fighting level 1 monsters, you will do the same amount of damage, which is very different from a regular type of damage, where the higher the zone level is, the more damage reduction monsters get. So for example, say your build has like 1 million DPS, there's a random number, 10 million DPS. In reality, it will do, in level 100 zones, it will do, I think, 82% damage reduction or something like that you get at zone level 100. So you will only deal 1.8 mil, for example, if you had 10 million DPS. But with this, you just take your reflected damage, do the math real quick, and you will see that on a reflect build like that, if you have all the proper stuff, enough attributes to scale your thorns, reflect damage, all that stuff, you will get about between 2 to 4 million DPS, which is gonna be like always the case. How are we gonna make this? Why Paladin, first of all? Well, I mean, I was playing Paladin, and Paladin is definitely gonna be less damage than something like a Primalist, but it'll be a lot better defense, because obviously you get to cap block. It is difficult, and it is only possible because of Paladin. Originally, I wanted to do this on a Forge Guard, but Forge Guard cannot cap block, and that is not an option in hardcore. If you want to do something like a Uber Breath, for example. Yeah, so that it has to be Paladin. Paladin has a lot of good benefits anyway for the build, and I'm gonna go over this in a second now. I'm just gonna start with the tree. So the tree is nothing special, you just wanna get the block. Basically, you only get defense from your tree. Defense, attunement are the only things you're looking for. Defense, attunement, and that's it. So basically block, we get all the attunement from here, the attunement from here. Here just to be able to travel throughout 3. Life endurance, hitting effectiveness is good anyway. Same thing here, just life res, hitting effectiveness, and obviously here res, armor cast speed, block, divine essences for armor, damage over time reduction here too, and just two filler points here for more stats. And we're gonna go in Void Knight to get the obviously the Fizz Res here, the 5 point that give you Void and Fizz damage reduction. And finally, we go in Forge Guard to get the block, mainly the block, and especially this node here, Iron Attunement, which gives us attunement armor, but also gives us the ability to apply a percentage of our damage reduction from armor to damage over time. And because we're stacking so much attunement, for example, this setup has 157 attunement, so that means that we're getting 77% of our armor damage mitigation to dots, which is insane. For example, my current character that I had 71% damage mitigation from armor, although it is out of combat, so I think it's actually higher than that. So that will give you about like 60, about 60% damage reduction to dots, which is pretty insane. 55, I guess, yeah, sorry, 55, something like that, which is pretty insane. Because I am also pretty sure that this stat here is completely different than the ones you get from, say, an experimental affix or the sentinel bases that give percentage of your armor mitigation applying to dust. I think it is a separate stat. Might be. I'm not 100% sure about that. I haven't tested, but regardless, it's on top of these things. Also on top of the Paladin here. Well, yeah, armor to dots pretty much. And then yeah, we have just life here and obviously here. That allows us another reason why our stacking armor is really good on this, because it also gives us damage. So you, again, stacking one stack giving you both defense and damage is always very strong in RPGs in general. So this is very good. There's also another thing you can do, which is to use the regen keys. There's a regen node So this one, for example, is another node that's very, very good with this setup. If you get the 5 points here, you get 2% increased health regen per attunement. And again, we have 150 attunements, so that's 300% increased health regen. So I think another angle we can do with this, since you go Vessel of Strife instead of Twisted Heart. But I guess I'll just talk about that later. So we're gonna be using Smite. And the reason we use Smite is to be able to generate ward through Twisted Heart. So Twisted Heart generates ward, sacrifices life to generate ward based on your life. If you use an elemental skill. So Smite is an elemental skill. And the good thing about it is not only will it trigger Twisted Heart, it will also heal you if you're melee range. And it will cleanse you with 30% chance. Which is pretty huge on something like, well, pretty much in everywhere. Cleanses your ailments. On Uber Breath removes a frailty debuff, which is the big part of the fight. It also gives you Calling Strike here. Fish kill threshold 9%. So that's 9% Calling Strike. It's pretty strong. And on top of it, it triggers Healing Hands. And as we do with every single Paladin build, we use Healing Hands to generate ward if possible. Through Divine Bear, Synthesis of Light, and Home Ward to make sure that it's always cast on us. So even if you're hitting something with Healing Hands from distance, you will still generate ward on yourself, and that will allow you to generate with Twisted Heart. This probably amounts to around like 4k ward, 4k to 5k ward that you can generate. You can probably push it higher as well, and it also obviously heals you for HP. So that is, and also gives you 10% void and necrotic damage mitigation. So it's very, very good. That is the reason we use Smite, even though this our Smite, to be clear, and Healing Hands will not do any damage. All the damage will come just from this chest here. Every time the chest will blind enemies every 0.5 seconds, you reflect the damage to them. That is the only thing that will do most, well, if not all of your damage. And we only use that to support that, just to basically generate defense, apply debuffs with a Smite with the frailty on hit here. We'll apply frailty as well. And yeah, Calling Strike, all that stuff. Symbols of Hope. Obviously, that allows us to cap our block. So we get 3 per symbol, that's 15%, and then we multiply that by the Symbol of Hope effect here, and that's 18% chance to block from your symbols, which is huge. That is one of the reasons we can actually cap block, on top of all the stuff that Paladin gets, like 8% from Paladin here. And also gives us like healing effectiveness and their threshold, just good things in general. Also, another option over Smite is you can use Judgment instead of Smite. And just trigger Healing Hands through Cleric Hammer instead. Now the problem with that is, yeah, your healing would be lower, so your ward will be, everything will be lower. You have less ward, you have less healing. You will not trigger Twisted Heart either, so you should have a lot less ward, but you have better defense because you get to also use Vengeance, and Vengeance gives a lot of damage mitigation. Now the problem with that you also don't get to use Rebuke, which at least for Uber Breath is just, I'm not sure if it's better, but it's definitely, it doesn't require you to be in melee range, so that is a big advantage. So yeah, these are the other option that you can do. There's multiple ways to do it. This is just what I ended up going with because in the limited time I had. It's something that I decided to do at the very, very last minute, probably like 12 hours before I did Uber Breath. So it's a very last minute. But I think this is pretty solid, and I think this should be optimal. But again, yeah, you can use the mana, like I said, the seed helmet for mana, or you can also alternatively use Judgment with Vengeance instead of Smite and Rebuke. These are the adjustments I could see you could potentially do for it to be just as good, probably. And for the Holy Aura, obviously, it's always used on Paladin, gives us a bunch of res. Cleanse again on your. If you want to use Holy Aura, press the active, you also get to cleanse whenever you want. Some healing effectiveness, cast speed, just overall very strong. Some the last 2 points here don't really matter. You can take that for more block effectiveness. You can take that for some more regen. You can, yeah, there's really not that much else. And for the last skill, we use Rebuke because again, we're playing a Reflect build. There's nothing else in the Paladin toolkit that helps us do anything really. So all we want is stuff that helps you survive, or quality of life, defense, speed, whatever it is. Technically, you could use Javelin. An option, to be honest, would be to use Javelin for movement, and you just throw your Javelin and dash to it. That's an option too. But I went with Rebuke so that I could face tank some of the abilities Uber Abroth has. And once you have this node here and a bunch of cooldown recovery speed here, you can pretty comfortably like rebuke a lot of the dangerous abilities on any given fight. Gives you an absurd amount of mitigation whenever you use it, thanks to Brave the Elements, Augmented Plating, and then the rest is just CDR, duration, all that stuff, and you can just like you don't lose any damage pressing that button, so it is a really strong ability to have in your toolkit. As for the gear, like I said, the Thicket of Blinding of Light, that is mandatory. This is how the build works. Allows you to deal your reflected damage to enemies. Now, it doesn't scale with anything. For example, to be clear, like if you have increased damage anywhere, it doesn't do anything. Increased physical damage does nothing. Resistances do nothing. There is absolutely no way to scale that damage other than the unique mod here with the more damage reflected to bosses and rare enemies. And this shield here that gives increased flat damage reflected to attackers per attunement. There are two only ways you can scale that damage. So this is why we stack attunement and why it is really good on Paladin. Sentinel and Paladin in general, because of these nodes here that scale with attunement. This one here that I'm not using currently, but we could. I think, like I said, one of the versions I think would be pretty strong would be with Vessel of Strife and try to focus a lot on health regen. But as is, this is a setup we have right now. These two core uniques you must have. The rest you do not necessarily need. They're just very good. Like Twisted Heart is extremely good. Don't need. Again, none of these items are necessary. They're just very good. The only two that are necessary are Blinding Light and Tone Shell. We use as a weapon, use a Shadowed Cycle with cast speed. The only reason we use that is because it gives us cast speed, and more cast speed means more ward through casting smites, triggering Twisted Heart and Healing Hands. The helmets, again, same thing, just attunement everywhere. Everywhere you can get attunement, you want attunement. So our helmet just C7 attunement, hit level of Healing Hands because they actually help us, and then just a bunch of defense. Also allows us to get some crit mitigation in case we get crit before enemies get blinded. One thing to note is, this blinds enemies constantly, which means you do not need any crit mitigation, but, you know, it doesn't hurt to have some just in case you get hit off screen by something you might. Strength of Souls, again, you don't need that same thing. I use that because we generate a lot of ward, and with Strength of Soul you just get an extra, I don't know, 1000, 1500 ward maybe, just from using that, probably more. And it is not that difficult to get to 2 LP. Hitting it is it's a bit annoying, but you don't need that belt. You can use just a normal rare belt with double life affixes. The prefixes don't really matter. The rings, I have red rings here, but again, you don't need those. If you don't have red rings, I have a setup here. You can just use a tongue instead. It also has 3 attributes. The main reason we use red rings is for the 5 attributes and the less damage taken, obviously. But if you don't have them, it's not a problem. You don't need that mitigation unless you're doing something like Uber Abroth. So that is a non-issue. These are extremely easy to get with 3 LP. I've gotten multiple 4 LPs. Within the 3 days that I've played, I've gotten maybe 2 4 LPs even. So you will have 3 LPs. You might get 4 LPs too, relatively easily. And this is it's just 3 attributes. You can alternatively, you can use Opal Rings, because they also have 2 attributes and some cooldown recovery rate, which is pretty good. It is just much harder to get an Opal Ring with the proper exalted affix and all the stats you want than just making a ring from any base and putting it onto a tongue. Now, one thing that is important to know is that if you want to cap your block, you must have 2 tier 7 block chance mods somewhere. So it's either on one of the rings, either on the rings or the gloves. 2 item slots you can get your block chance in. So I would say that a 3 LP Hand of Judgment is really something you want, because the cast speed is very important, the attunement is obviously mandatory, and the block chance is mandatory. If you just use tongues, it's no problem. You can just get your block chance from the tongues, and have a 2 LP Hand of Judgment will be enough. But if you want to use red rings, then it will be extremely difficult for you to be able to get block on them. Like here for example, I have block chance on one of them. It's not ideal because you lose a lot of attunement, but Personally, I would use only 1 red ring if I were to choose. Use only 1 red ring and use a tongue with block chance on the other slot, so that you don't lose so much attunement. Actually, should probably change that here to tongue, to be honest. But I think it is better to just do it this way, so you can also have some attunement. Also, you can potentially get a double exalted ring and have both of them, and then you don't lose anything. But I think I'll probably do something like this, which yeah, would be a attunement gain, and yeah, just lose the red ring slot. Boots, we just use Foot of the Mountain. Again, it's just for attributes. It's a lot of attributes, and that's the only reason really. I would not use Foot of the Mountain without 2 LP, because otherwise you're better off just using G7, some G7 move speed boosts with attunement, or G7 attunement boosts with move speed. Yeah, I would not use that item without. And other than that, the neck we use Orion's Eye because there's nothing else to use on your neck slot really. Like you could there's no prefixes you care about. The suffixes are just gonna be life, health, I guess, and maybe like right now we have frailty because there's no other source of frailty currently on this setup. Technically you can get a blessing. You can get it through a blessing, but I prefer to get the armor. So yeah, just get Orion's Eye. It's very good for Ubera Breath, which was the main goal. And yeah, that's pretty much covers everything. You just get thorns from your idols. That's the one part I didn't go through. Obviously, you need to find flat reflect from somewhere, and the biggest source is the idol. The small Weaver idols can go up to 150, which is huge. You have 20 idols, and that will be where all your flat reflect comes from, and then you scale it through attunement with the shield. And all of that will be again scaled further against rare enemies and bosses with that unique mod here. You cast Smite to generate ward and apply frailty and call, and that's about it. And monsters will just die. You're gonna be running through maps, and monsters will just die randomly. You can just arenas, for example, pretty funny. You just sit there AFK and just everything just dies. You don't have to do anything. And yeah, I think this build has like insane clear speed, because obviously what you can do when you're mapping is you just play with shield rush and just rush. That's it. That's all you do. You actually do not have to actually fight anything, class anything. You just shield rush forward, and monsters will just die passively as you go to the map. And you can also obviously, if you could play this on Forge Guard, you could have the node that allows your healing hands to reset when you heal allies with Ring of Shield, but again, that was not an option because Forge Guard cannot cap block. Yeah, so it has like probably some of the fastest clear speed in the game. It has very solid single target damage because it is not mitigable by monsters. Like even something like champions and beasts will die pretty quickly. But yeah, obviously something like Primalist would have a lot more single target damage because you get probably double the amount of flat reflect from Thorn Shield. So for pure single target, Primalist will be better. But in general, in terms of defense, Paladin has way more defense, probably more speed because you get to just shield rush through maps and watch everything die as you walk through. So yeah, just up to what you care about the most. I think Paladin is better because Primalist probably doesn't have the defense on that build to be able to fight something like Ubera Breath. He'll just die to every ability he has. Your defense is definitely not going to be good enough. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it about this build. If you have questions, feel free to leave them below. I have also killed that Ubera Breath on this build. There's a video I posted yesterday about it. I posted the fight yesterday, so you can check that out to see what the bossing on Ubera Breath looks like. It is not the best because Ubera Breath actually forces you to be behind him a bit too often. So even though on paper the fight should take like 5 minutes, I would say that you probably have like not 50% of time, maybe a bit more with him actually facing you. So it is not the best for that, but overall I think it's a very, very strong build, very fun. And if you want something like very chill and relaxed, this is definitely the build. All the Alpha enjoyers should log in. But anyway, that's it for today. Leave questions below, and yeah, see you guys in the next one. Peace.